This is Bless Radio. It's 6 p.m. UK time, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abdushin. I'm Saad in southeast London, in Bromley, and with me, as usual, is Gregory. Gregory, how are you, and how is the weather where you are?
One is fine, weather is cloudy, a bit windy.
Okay, I can just hear a little bit, how can I say, you're like in a distance in the background there. So if you can come closer to your mic, it sounds a bit, you're further away. So
Thank you.
welcome.
The weather
Yes, here,
is
yes, it's sounding better.
cloudy.
It sounds
I,
better now. I think it's better, yeah. So yes, here in Bromley right now, it is sunny, overcast as well. It's been nice and sunny today. A little bit of wind as well, which is nice, and it's cooler than it's been the last week. It's been quite hot, up to 30 degrees, and today is about 20 something. So much fresher, you can call it. So welcome listeners to this spiritual discussion program. Every week we have a new topic for discussion. The topic for tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. If you wish to join in with any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting. That is blessradio1, that's the number one.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. I'm going to begin with, what is the Grail Message? The Grail Message in the Light of Truth by Abdushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail Message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover through the intuitive perception if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail Message, Abdushin. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole without leaving any gaps. Again and again in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic that we are discussing tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. If you wish to ask any questions or have any comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. There, if you scroll down on the homepage, you will see a box called Bless Chat. You can type in any questions or comments there. Gregory, as you know, and listeners, I like to always begin by looking up the words of the topic in the dictionary. So again, the topic tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. So the first word there is humanity. So in the dictionary, I've got 2 meanings for the word humanity. The first one, human beings collectively. Gregory, what do you say to that one? Is it a good definition?
Well, it's a generalized definition which is usable.
Okay. Sounds like it's not quite sufficient, but we will go with it. So generalize, as you say. Now the next one, it is the quality of being humane, benevolence. So, yeah, the quality of being humane, benevolence. How's that, Gregory?
One has to use a framework as the basic consideration. You find that what you have in the dictionary has only been describing, taking general words to qualify, but really hasn't told you what humanity is. So quality of being humane, that means quality of being a human being, something of that nature, which is more like an adjective. So these things are, although understandable, but the intrinsic meaning has not been discussed at all.
Right. So I think I better ask you now. I think it's better than we go too far. What would be let's say, a better definition for the word humanity?
In the first instance, humanity, when one looks at the topic, must be defined within the context of creation. So that which is referred to as human or in general humanity, these are creatures in creation which have as their inner core spirit, which spirits are of free will. That is what a human being is, or that's what in general one can refer to those creatures that have spirit, that which is spiritual or has a spiritual core as a human personality, or in general, when considered as one humanity.
Thank you for that. Sorry, excuse me. So thank you for that, um, uh, let's say, very clear definition there of humanity. Now, let's continue. So the second key word in the topic is task. The dictionary says a task is a piece of work to be done or undertaken. Is that good for our discussion, Gregory?
It is usable and is good enough.
Okay, that's good. Now let's continue. The next one, the key word I have looked up is connect. So there it is in dictionaries giving me two meanings, connect. So the first one, bring together or into contact so that a real or notional link is established. So the first meaning of connect, bring together or into contact so that a real or notional link is established. How is that one, Gregory?
One may look at this with that keyword link. So with that keyword taken, it is usable.
Okay, that's good. And the other one for the word connect is associate or relate in some associate or relate something in some respect. And they give an example of that. Employees are rewarded with bonuses connected to their firm's performance. So again, to repeat, associate or relate something in some respect. Is that any use for us?
That is more of an adjective or adjunct. The word link expresses it all.
Okay, that's good. So let's continue. The next word I have got is whole. That's W-H-O-L-E, whole. And the meaning in the dictionary, again, we have two meanings. It is all of or entire. That's the first one. All of or entire. How's that?
It is precise enough.
That's good. And the second meaning in the dictionary for the word whole is an unbroken or undamaged state in one piece. How is this?
The word in one piece is also usable. Unbroken is not, when one is considering that which is whole, that means it's undivided.
Right. Okay, that's good. I'm going to make a note of that one, undivided. And the next word is creation. In the dictionary, we've got two meanings there. Creation. So the first one is the action or process of bringing something into existence. How's that, Gregory?
That is such is quite elusive. It's difficult to put one's thumb on it because creation itself is one may refer to as a container that has creatures which are capable of certain type of activities, something of that nature. So that word creation to be defined the way it does, I mean, it has just been done, is more of a very narrow view of what creation is.
but it's a process. This one is talking about process, so it's not they're not like a noun of well, it's still a noun, but it's the process of creating. So without using the word creation, creating in it. So it says bringing into existence. So it's because if you're a creature, you have been created as a creature. So it means some process must have happened. So I think that's what this, because you know when they give more than one meaning, it's uh, as I say, some of them apply uh, in one way, and the other one applies in a different way. So it's not always directly what we when we get into this more than one meaning that it will cover exactly what you are thinking. Let's say what you are in your mind want to talk about. So I would say this is the process of being coming into existence, and so that is the creation. You have created something in that way. So I would say that's where this is coming from.
Well,
Ro-
it's usable. It's usable. Maybe
yes,
when one
yes,
gets closer, one
yes,
can dissect it, make it more understandable.
yes. Because the second meaning, I think, is more close to what you are talking about, which is the creating, they actually say it now, the creating of the universe, especially when regarded as an act of God. So the creating of the universe, especially when regarded as an act of God. So that is creation of a universe. In fact, it's still actually a process. I just realized that is still a process rather than. Any case, Gregory, what do you say to this one?
These are usable. Like I said, it's only when um, specific questions arise that one has to examine them in accordance with this process of creation.
Yes. In fact, Gregory, my first question is about this. To get that's why we do need to get into it to really, understand this concepts clearly. Um, Now, I did Google again because now we have this Google AI, and you can write a sentence in Google, and it comes up with its own, let's say, research, and come up with its own idea. So, but we not say its own idea, but it's what it has found, I should say. Okay. Now, so I'm going to just read this out. Uh, what is found. So I put in the search, Google search, AI search. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Exactly the words of the topic tonight. And this is what it came up with. The concept of humanity's task to connect the whole creation, while not explicitly stated as a single sentence in religious texts, is a recurring theme in various scriptures and theological interpretations. It often relates to the idea of stewardship, where humans are seen as the caretakers of creation, tasked with extending God's blessings and order to the rest of the world. This involves not just physical care, but also spiritual and moral dimensions of creation, aiming for wholeness and harmony. Gregory, is that like a good, I don't know, summary um, of this concept of the humanity's task to connect the whole creation?
One has to do a critical analysis of what you yourself have just read out and the essence of the topic which has been chosen. What AI has done is to, based on what currently exists due to the recognition or due to the perceptions of many, it has collated it and built it up as a response to what has been typed in there. Yes, to some extent it is okay, but it ties it basically to religious precepts. Whereas when creation is mentioned, it has absolutely nothing, is completely independent of religion. Although teachings in religion in their individual investigation, may come close to some conclusion and say, oh, this is what we have perceived. Um, if one has to be objective, as we strive to do in this particular forum, that concept which I just put, talked about, must become neutral, must not be tied to religion as such or the sciences, but must be viewed from a neutral point, because it's only through creation that the human personality that we are referring to came into existence and functions.
Thank you for that answer, and you can say picture you're giving us there, Gregory. So what I will do now, let us just continue with this concept of creation, because that actually, I think, is our starting point to, let's say, get clarity. So my first question really, Gregory, is what is creation? Is it heaven and earth?
Creation as must be viewed or can be viewed by many is more of a container, which container has come into existence that permits its creatures, to come into activities, which activity these creatures could not even come to because creation as such did not exist.
Okay, I'm just trying to get the idea what you're saying there. So it sounds to me that this creation is about activity, but itself, on its own, it didn't come into existence by itself. So it's like there's something powering, if I can say like that, this creation. Am I right to say that?
Yes, of course.
Okay, good. So that's a good, I got a good understanding there. Now, I'm trying to, Gregory, so at the moment you've given a very general definition of creation, where there are creatures within this container. We're using the word container for the word creation, because there's creatures that live in this world, which is called creation. So that makes sense. But in a way, we still don't know what exactly is creation there. So now let's try to break it down. So I mentioned this heaven and earth, Gregory. So is this part of creation? Maybe we should say what is heaven and what is earth. So let's go there. So Gregory, what is really the creation made of, in a way? Is it this concept of heaven and earth? Let's look at that first. Is that correct when we refer to creation?
Well, the question one may ask, or before one asks that question, earth we know because we inhabit the earth. So it is a given priori that we are here because we can perceive the features of the earth with our capabilities of that the body of flesh and blood has. Outside, beyond that which is of flesh and blood, that is in another realm. Many just call that the beyond. But that doesn't mean that which is referred to as the beyond is heaven. So these are general terms which, if one is to hold on to them, will lead to so much confusion because some may refer to that which is beyond the flesh and blood, heaven. Some may call it the beyond. Some will now start categorizing that which is beyond the earth. They will break it in different categories. So to hold one and say this is heaven will be misleading because even in so-called science, you hear of the heavenly bodies, which in that case they are referring to that which is physical but is beyond the earth. So this is why it becomes very nebulous. There's no precision in the expressions like heaven. Many you can quote it, but you really cannot make use of it to give you precise meaning.
Right. So what about the word universe? Because that is, people are, let's say, scientists are exploring, and they're looking at the stars and so on, and they're seeing that we live in this universe. So when we talk about the Earth, the first thing you think of is just, of course, the Earth that we are inhabiting. Uh, but if you talk in a metaphorical way, it can be called this whole physical universe. So, not so the Earth is referring not only to this Earth, but the world, all others, let's say, a world of matter. I don't know how to put it in a way, which is this universe. So, is creation? We talked about the beyond as well. I don't want to get too diverted right now. So when we use that word phrase universe, is that the same as creation?
No,
Aha.
because very simply, when one hears of the world, the expression universe, for many, they are referring to that which is so big and encompasses that which is earthly, which they can perceive with their five senses. And most precisely, they are referring to the world of matter. So when the world of matter is referred to, there must be another world which is not of matter. Now, you ask yourself, is that world also classified when the universe is mentioned? And the question now becomes, what type of universes are we talking about? There is that which is perceptible to us, which is the world of matter. Beyond the world of matter, there must be some other universes that has to be considered. So the definitions which have been used so far turn out to be very narrow.
Okay, that's thank you for that. Could say clarification. I want to still get to the bottom of this concept of creation. So, what we are seeing is at the moment that there is this world of matter, which is the Earth is part of that matter, and so is this. You could say the physical universe is in the world of matter. So that's clear. And then we've also mentioned earlier the world beyond. You could say the world beyond matter. So, which we have not explored yet. So I want to get there as well. Yeah. So, and we started with saying heaven and earth, and Gregory, you said that's not precise enough, because there's more than just heaven and earth. So there's a heaven there, Gregory. Now, the heaven is not matter. Am I right, Gregory?
That's, one may say it is inconsistent with what creation entails. Although from so-called religious point of view, I mean, when heaven is referred to, it's referring to that which is beyond the world of matter, where things seem complete or perfect. But again, these things are still very nebulous. So there's a need first to start from a more precise concept and build a picture which is consistent, and now say, here, creation starts from here, and subsequently we come to the world of matter, and there are different species which are discussed along that line. Only from such a perspective can one have a consistent picture, else it will be touch and go. You say this, I thought heaven is this, what about this, what about this? And you find such becomes more like an arbitrary way of looking at it.
Thanks for that, Gregory. So now we are seeing that there are species within this creation. And although we haven't specified what the species are, there are a number of them, which is clear. And you could say one of these species is the world of matter that we are inhabiting as human beings. So we're going to explore that further in our discussion. So I want to let the listeners know now that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushi. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments by contacting us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting live on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 again, space Grail Message, space the topic of the show, which is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. And after this show, you can listen to the recording of this show, also on YouTube, and writing again in the search box the same words, which are humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. And of course, you can listen to the recordings of our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno. That's ZENO.fm/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, Gregory, and listeners, we've been trying to explore and understand the concept of creation. We've established that this world, the earth, and the world of matter is one of the species that exist in creation. So there are other species in creation. And we also looked at heaven, and we considered that that concept is not precise enough to get the clarity of these, you could say, the other species that exist also in creation. And now I'm thinking, Gregory, it probably is a good idea. We should explain those, or let's say go into what these other species are, because the whole topic is to connect the whole creation. That is what we are saying. The humanity is supposed to do that. So, of course, if you don't know what the other species are in the creation, it's going to be hard to connect. So we started with this concept of the world beyond the world of matter. But again, that's not telling us much what it is. What is in this world, Gregory, in this world beyond? And maybe you can, let's say, when you do that, just say, how humanity's role, what is the role of humanity? Because that's the whole topic. To get the grasp of this topic, we need to know what is the role. So what is happening? We know, for example, let's say on this earth, we have some idea of our role. We are born as a child, and then we grow up to become adult, educated, and so on, have a career, get maybe a family, and continue the generation. That is one task you can see that is happening on this earth. Maybe there's even more than just that. You can say looking after the earth, as the religious texts seem to say to us, to look after this earth. But that is on this world, you can say. But what happens, Gregory? So what are these other worlds or species that exist in creation, and what is humanity's task or work in these other worlds?
Hello?
Yes, yeah, I'm finished. Did you get what I said there, Gregory?
No, I was listening. Have you asked the question?
Yes, the question is, what are these other worlds that are beyond this world of matter, that are the different species of creation, and what is the task of the humanity in these other worlds, the different worlds? Because so far we know mostly about this earth world of matter, but what are these other worlds, and what is the task of humanity in these other worlds?
To discuss this topic you yourself just mentioned, the need is there to consider what creation is and the activities within creation, the objects in creation, and how they relate to one another. Before creation came into existence, of course, there would not have been creation before creation came into existence. And one of the key things that many sometimes consider is energy. And it is said, or to be very precise, energy is spirit. That means our starting point must be that of spirit or that of energy. So that means you must, or one must, consider the starting point within this container as energy or as spirit. Once that has been fully well established, we all know none of us can hold energy in our hands. None of us can smell it. But the effects of energy is very clear because it's able to make changes. And that being the case, in order to categorize precisely what creation is, the need is there to say, fair enough, at the initial stage, there was the primordial energy or primordial spirit. And in that particular state, in its primordial state, you have that the motion, that motion which is referred to, the movement or the motion, the vibrations, is so very high. However, as these movements or this motion distances itself away, that is a process which one may refer to as precipitation. So what is referred to as creation is an initial bundle of energy, which energy may be referred to as the primordial energy, and the process of densification or the process of cooling down produces some densification, and it is that which one is referred to as species. So basically, you have the primordial spiritual species, and when there is a cool down, there are other species that have now come into existence which were not in existence initially. The categorization is well marked out in the work in the light of truth. That process which we are referring to, which is referred here, which is that which one may refer to as motion, for all that creation entails is in motion. Therefore, motion is a law in creation, which law has always been there. There are only two types, or this motion in creation are reducible to only two types. That motion in which the end flows back to the beginning, and that motion in which the end does not flow back to the beginning. One can already see that that motion, which one may call a vibration, in which the end flows back to the beginning, that is more of a reciprocal activity. So it is now possible to categorize that at the beginning you have the law of reciprocal activities. At the same time, it is also justifiable that in that scenario where the end flows back to the beginning, that presents a picture of an attraction. That picture of an attraction where the end flows back to the beginning, that may be referred to as an attraction of that which is homogeneous. So that in itself defines very clearly what a species is. So at the beginning, we have this primordial species. As things precipitate, in which you have that the end does not flow back to the beginning anymore, that concept of a distance comes in. That concept of a cooling down comes in which some other alien species to the initial ones emerge. Subsequently, there are further activities, further cooling down. Basically, in order not to stretch it too far, you have in the first basic one, that's of the spiritual or the primordial spiritual. After the cooling down of the spiritual, you now have another species which does not go back to the spiritual. That species may be referred to as the animistic species. And thereafter, we now arrive as a further cooling down the world of matter. These are three gigantic divisions, just to make it very clear. That which is spiritual as the first, and a precipitation thereof from the spiritual due to the cooling down, therefore distancing away from the spiritual. There is the animistic, which is alien to the spiritual. And the third part, which a precipitate from that which is spiritual, from that which is animistic, that is the world of matter, which many of us are very familiar with, because we use the world of matter as cover. That is why it's a huge precipitate. The elements in the world of matter is what the individual uses as cover.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for this picture and explanation you have given us, about, you could say, the process, uh, what creation is and what process um, has led to its, it sounds weird, but the creation. So the creation of creation, if I can say it like that. So, or this, the creation of the species that have come into creation, starting from the spiritual or primordial spiritual, then the animistic, as you said, then this world of the ethereal, which is, and then this finally this world of matter that we are very familiar with. And this is so the creation we have definitely come to know or realize that it is not, creation is not just this world of the earthly matter that we are familiar with. There is this world beyond the world of matter, which is even bigger, you can say, than this world of matter. And probably we are most unfamiliar of this other world. And yet that is creation. And again, to remind us, the topic tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. That is why I've spent with Gregory all this time at the beginning of the show to understand what exactly is creation, which is, as I say, maybe unfamiliar to us, and yet it needs to be. We need to be aware of it if we're going to fulfill our task to connect this whole creation. Gregory, what I'm noticing or observing is that these worlds that you've mentioned, we are not really familiar with them. Even you could say we are unconscious somehow, if I can use that phrase, unaware about this world beyond matter. So why is that, Gregory? Why is it that we don't seem to know hardly anything about
Actually, it is not 100% correct to say we're not maybe familiar with it. Why? Because you'll find that the word energy is used commonly. That's why one had to mention the energy, that which we are familiar with. However, only the effects of energy, that is what we to some extent know or conscious of. There's also the mention of primordial or primordial spiritual. So again, the picture which is being painted is done very gradually with very simple stroke. Primordial spiritual is that which was there or which came into existence at the beginning. Also, the word animistic, we are familiar with the expression animal. So one had to use these expressions which we hear of and make use of in our daily language and try to use them to create or to form a picture, to arrange it in such a way that the listener can easily follow. So the word spiritual, that is very clear, although that which is of spirit, many consider it to be of something else. It's not easily related to energy. One can very clearly state energy is spirit, and spirit is energy. Subsequently, we now have the world which one referred to, or the species which one referred to as the animistic, which is below, because it's a precipitation. Many are used or have heard of the expression precipitate. When one goes further, matter. The word of matter has been used, or matter has been used many times. We are familiar with these, but we haven't come to the cognition of these key words: that which is of spirit, that which is animistic, and then the world of matter. We have these expressions as cognitive objects, but what we then lack is the recognition of these expressions, the innate recognition. It is the innate recognition that entails that we have a clear and precise view of what creation is and how these expressions fit in to produce a holistic picture. With the world of matter, of course, there are many subdivisions. There's the ethereal matter, and there are various strata of matter. And finally, you now have, after these many gradations or stratifications, you now have the gross material. That which we refer to as the gross material is that which is perceptible to the personality that has flesh and blood. Perceptible not only directly, but even within, using instruments to explore that particular species. So when it comes to recognition, you will find, or the individual will find, gross matter can only recognize gross matter. You will find ethereal matter can only recognize ethereal matter. When you leave the world of matter and goes into that of the animistic, which is above it, that which is animistic can only recognize that which is animistic. This is in accordance with the attraction of homogeneity. Above the animistic, in which you have spirituality, that which is spiritual can only recognize that which is spiritual. So you cannot have that personality of flesh and blood recognizing, using the abilities of the physical body to recognize that which is spiritual. That is completely out of the question, because they are of different species. With this understanding, many a question will now be sorted and solved. However, the effect of spiritual activity may have an impact on animistic activity. And animistic activity may have an impact on material activity. Very simply, many hopefully have now recognized that the human personality, or humanity as is called, which are recognizable using the five senses, there is more to it. That which has an impact on the physical body, that individual is of spirit. So the impact of spiritual activities has an effect on that which is in its sub-layer, which is that which is of animistic, and from there now directly to the world of matter. There are substratas, but if one takes them one little step at a time, then the picture becomes holistic and no more nebulous.
Thank you very much, Gregory, for this, as you say, step-by-step picture of the worlds in creation and the species within creation. And as you were pointing out, although it might appear on the surface that we are not familiar with them, in a way we are familiar. Just we haven't got the cognition, as you say, that is necessary, because as the topic says tonight, humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Well, you need to know what is the creation first before you can connect. So it looks like we have some idea of what is in creation, but now it needs to be a deeper understanding. I think idea is not even enough, because if you're going to connect something, you better know what you're doing. So thank you for that. So dear listeners, I just want to remind you, you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail Message by Abrushin. If you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. If you want to join in the discussion with any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. You can type in any questions or comments there. We are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the search box. Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, the topic of the show tonight, which is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. And after the show, you can listen to the recording of the show again on YouTube. Go to youtube.com and type in the same words in the search box again, which are Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1 there, space, Grail Message, space, humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Of course, you can listen to our previous shows as well, also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM/radio/bless radio 1. That's the number 1 there. Now, listeners, so we've really spent the first hour getting to grasp what exactly is the creation, which we are a part of as creatures, as human beings. Currently, you know, we are living, not that it's something a surprise, we are living on this earth. However, that is not the whole creation. There is this world, we can also, on earth, we can call it, it is part of the world of matter. But there is other species of matter as well. And so this world, just to be clear about it, the world the earth or the physical universe that we are inhabiting, that is called, also known as the world of gross matter. Then there's, when we pass on, we enter this world called the ethereal world, which is also a world of matter. And then there is, after that, beyond that, is this world of the animistic. Animistic, but not matter. Up to now we've been calling it matter. No, all was matter up to this point. Beyond this ethereal world is the world of the animistic realm. That's where, just so that, although it's not directly necessary to know it straight at this moment, but just to give a bit of clarity about the picture, that's where the animals or the animal souls originate. They exist in their souls come from there. So they're not. And then beyond that animistic world is the spiritual world, which is, you could say, to really to have full clarity, is where we human beings originate as spirit. So the spirits come from this spiritual world. Now, as Gregory's been mentioning, there are subdivisions within these, but that is not necessary to know at this in this time, because that's getting into too much detail. So that's the basic division of creation. We have the spiritual, we have, starting from the top, you can say spiritual, animistic, ethereal world, and then the world of gross matter. And the idea is to connect. That's what we've been told. Our task as human beings is to connect the whole creation. That is why we spend so much time to get to recognize or realize that there is this other worlds in creation. Otherwise, how we will connect them? Now, the next question that comes up is, okay, so that's humanity's task. We are saying, whether we know it or not, the task of the human being is to connect the whole world of creation. Now, what is the purpose of that, Gregory? Why do we human beings need to do that? I guess every creature we've talked about creatures. There are many creatures, and each creature has a task to do. So for us human beings, it is meant to be to connect the whole of creation. So, Gregory, what is the point of that? What was the purpose of connecting this whole creation?
Well, before one examines thoroughly that statement you made, there is the need to first consider a very simple perspective that you mentioned earlier on, in which when we are born as children, and as a child, the child is dependent on the parents. The child, to some extent, is barely or barely recognizes its environment, but as time goes on, becomes aware of its environment. And as it matures, it gets to a stage in its life here on earth where not only is it aware, or not only is it conscious of its environment, it now wants to exercise its own innate volition. In that case, it wants to exercise its own self-consciousness. It wants to develop this self-consciousness from its initial state to a much higher state through its activities here on earth. That is what we see with the human personality here on earth in its maturing, whatever field it gets into, maybe that of music or that of education. And having done that, where it impacts its own self-consciousness on the environment in sharing with others who are in the process of doing that, it also knows it does not live here on earth permanently, that means forever. And there are others who may come after it through its own decisions, as in the case of birth. It's only fair to say that the impact that it has made on the environment and also on others. The others also make use of that which they have learned from the individual. That is what many call schools, such that they don't have to reinvent this wheel. They make use of this, and this leads to continuity. And in leading to continuity, there should be or must be continuous improvement of the individual, of the environment, if it is managed well. That is the picture which the human personality is familiar with here on earth. That's the picture the human personality is familiar with. That picture in which the human personality uses the features that has been endowed to it. It has developed it further. The five senses, That is only here on earth. But the question the individual must ask, is it the body of flesh and blood that makes those decisions, that does the experiencing? It is now found out that that which is referred to as the spirit, that must have come from that particular region of homogeneity, which is the spiritual realm. In the spiritual realm, the human personality that is on the outskirts of the spirit needs to experience, just like when someone is born on earth. Initially, it needs to gradually experience. That need for experiencing forces it out with the stream of others who wish to experience. However, in order to experience beyond their current boundary, there is the need to take on a covering of that which lies below it. Take on a covering of the animistic. Because initially, when they move out from a state of unconsciousness. Just like you have when a child is still in the womb, one may regard that as that child does not yet know what it's going to experience. But as long as the child is now ejected out of that particular region and it comes into the world of the animistic, it takes on the body which has been formed, or which body, due to its innate capabilities, it takes on subsequently the human form, and gradually it becomes conscious of its surrounding because it's now able to experience its surrounding. That awareness of its surrounding is not yet self-consciousness. It goes further, comes into the world of matter, and needs to take on another body, particularly here on earth, where the need to experience that which activities here on earth, in order that through participation in these activities, its innate qualities may be brought to the fore. Hopefully it becomes self-conscious. Just as when you have the child now becoming an adult, it gets to that extent where it wants to exercise its inner volition. In that pattern, you now have that the human personality, which human personality was initially unconscious of its surrounding or of itself, in the process of coming downwards, taking up these cloaks or bodies, becoming conscious of its existence and conscious of its surrounding, and in further activities becoming self-conscious. That picture already tells you that it forms the link in the activation of further activities far away from its origin, its home, which many refer to as paradise. Therefore, it forms the connecting link between its home in the spiritual realm, albeit on the outskirts, and those other realms which lie denser, albeit one is referring to that which is animistic, and most likely that which is the world of matter. For it is able to perceive of the streams of power, the streams of spiritual power, because it is of spirit. Is able to perceive these streams of power in accordance with the law of the attraction of homogeneity, for only that which is of spirit will recognize which is of spiritual power. And in that case, in making use of this spiritual power, transmits its blessings which it has received for the benefit of others, just as others that are higher than he himself or herself transmits that of spiritual which is higher, passes it on to the individual human personality who in his activities down here transmits that power into that which is of benefit to others. Therein lies the link, therein lies the connection which is referred to in creation.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this. Again, the picture of the you could say, the task of the human being in their activity to connect this whole of creation. What you've shown us there is that there. I mean, for anyone to fulfill their task, they must have, number one, the ability, and then the number two, the you could say the understanding of what is required to be done, for the task to be done. But this ability and recognition of the task requires us to use, let's say, things that maybe we have not been, although the ability exists already, we have not been practicing it. And so we are not able to fulfill as we are meant to fulfill. So where I'm going to now, Gregory, is that what is it that allows us to fulfill our task? So you've told us that we are spirit, and at the beginning you told us that that spirit has a free will. That's good. That's you can say that's an ability there. But how does it work with this task that we need to fulfill? And what you have pointed to is this task. Let's say we've introduced this task to the listeners, that this is the task. But they initially may have wondered, is that really my task? If somebody's telling me that this is my task, I don't know if that really is my task. But in your explanations of this creation and our, let's say, position in relation to this creation, things became clearer that, okay, I'm a spirit. And then there's a world in creation called the spiritual world. And that's where you could say we spirit originate. So you already can make sense that something there's to be done there in the spiritual when you are a spirit. And yet we are right now on this earth, which is not a spiritual world, it's a world of matter. So then you said it's like a child journey of a child, from child to adulthood, which we are familiar on this earth. However, that is only, how can I say, a small parallel of the real big picture of what we are as a human being, which is a spirit, you could say, originating from the spiritual, coming down to this earth through the different worlds. And then, well, we may have not said it yet, but there is let's say that was only part of the journey. There is a return journey coming from the spiritual back down to this earth, developing ourselves on this earth, and then finally to go back to the spiritual as a matured conscious, starting as an unconscious spirit to become a conscious, even a self-conscious spirit. So that is the journey. And in this journey, yes, we are learning and we are working. So you have now, Gregory, pointed out what is the work of the spirit, of us human spirit. So yes, it's actually a lot to realize and to become conscious of is even a better word. Yeah, so that's really, really important to know all these points, and then everything. Once these things have become clear, then the task can be fulfilled properly the way it's meant to be fulfilled. So where I'm going now, Gregory, is what are these abilities that are required to fulfill our task? What abilities do we have? So please, can you tell us about that?
In the discussion, the mention is made of the innate abilities which need to be cultivated. That means they are there. These are potentials. Only when that which is potential is brought into use again and again, only then will it become useful. But usefulness not in an arbitrary manner, but usefulness in accordance with the will that placed these talents within the human personality to cultivate. One may ask, what are these talents which the human personality needs to cultivate? Very simply, the virtues. It is the virtues which have been sown within the human personality which need cultivation. They need cultivation through the laws of nature or the laws of creation, such that they become an intrinsic, active part of the human personality in its wakefulness. Its wakefulness, that means it's brought them into useful activity, such that the process of radiations of power, the process of radiations of streams of power from on high, having cultivated these virtues, it will enable the human personality in a not arbitrary way to apply these streams of power to others who are not yet as mature as itself. That is the task of the individual. There is the discussion again and again in which you have, as in the case of music, somebody comes forward and is able to compose music. Maybe it's only just singing. And this pleases the individual listener who hears of this. And that listener to the piece of music becomes so very happy, filled with joy. Yet that individual who is now filled with joy, filled with happiness, was not the one who composed the music, but is sharing of that which has come through another. Just as such goodness and happiness and joyfulness have reached others other than the individual who did the composition, so is every individual in the talents which have been sown into them, when brought into maturity, is supposed to be of benefit, not only to the individual, but to others, to other creatures who, like him, are striving for greater consciousness and self-consciousness. For, very simply, whoever receives of the blessings which stream from on high, even higher than its origin, up to the primordial spiritual, whoever receives of this blessing, make use of it. In the making use of it, it strengthens the individual. He becomes more conscious, becomes self-conscious. And in this process, pass on the products of that which it has been able to acquire self-consciously to others. Just as others will share of the products of what they have made of the radiation they were able to receive. In such a way, you will find that there is continuity. If, however, such is not maintained in creation, then you will find the radiations which is supposed to reach the world of matter, which is supposed to make the world of matter bubble with joy and happiness, is non-existent. It means the human personality that is able to receive, that means to perceive of these spiritual radiations, which spiritual radiations have their origin from on high, in that case has failed to fulfill its task. For in the fulfillment of its tasks, the picture of its origin, which lies higher in the paradise of man, that picture becomes clearer and clearer to it, the human personality, and a mirror of the spiritual paradise is now possible far away from its origin, such that subsequent human personalities who are striving to become conscious and subsequently self-conscious will learn from it, will adjust themselves to it, and in a like manner will fulfill their tasks, the one for all and the all for one. Then the radiations of peace and happiness and of joyfulness is shared across all. That is the task of the human personality that is striving to become self-conscious. Self-conscious not in an arbitrary manner, but self-conscious in accordance with the will of the Almighty that permitted the human personality to even come into existence.
Thanks very much, Gregory, for this, again, the picture you've given us about our human abilities and, our task in growing and, developing the virtues, or, growing into our virtues, not our virtues, but you could say applying our abilities to have these virtues, and really it's like we said earlier on about growing from a child to an adult. There's so many things to learn. So that child is learning to, let's say, adapt on this earth, but yet we as a spirit there are deeper abilities that we are having to learn about, or to be good, mature in using. And so virtues is one of those that we have to achieve. So thank you for that. I just want to let the listeners know that you're listening to Bless Radio, and this is the Tuesday evening spiritual discussion program. Or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic that we're discussing tonight is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. If you have any questions or comments, you can contact us on our UK number, which is 079 39 641 958. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 39 641 958. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And then there's one other way to contact us, which is by going to the website where we are broadcasting, that is blessradio1, that's the number 1.com. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see a box called Bless Chat. There you can type in any questions or comments. And we are also broadcasting on YouTube. Go to youtube.grail message space the topic of the show tonight, which is humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. Humanity's task is to connect the whole creation. And you can, after the show tonight, you can listen to the recording of this show again on YouTube with the same text in the search box, which I'll repeat one more time, which is Bless Radio 1, that's the number 1, space, Grail Message, space, humanity's task is to connect to the whole, is to connect the whole creation, sorry. And of course, you can listen to our previous shows also on YouTube. Thirdly, we are broadcasting on Zeno, that's ZENO.FM /radio/bless radio 1. That's the number 1 again. Now, Gregory, a lot has been said in this show in regard to this task of, connect human beings connecting to the whole creation. I wanted to ask, how are we doing in this task? Are we succeeding? If I'm honest, I feel like we are hardly aware of what the task is. So, but I just want to check, are we succeeding in this task of, as human beings, to connect the whole creation?
The question, or the answer to that particular question is, look around you and ask yourself the question, is this state of continuous warfare of destroying one another, is that the task of man, particularly here on earth, where you find there is the endangering of the environment, the endangering of man, wars and wars and wars going on? Will that be consistent with the will that granted the individual the opportunity to exist? And the right answer will be no. Because the individual, the human personality is too busy with envy and with the destruction of others. Others who, like him, have come into existence and need to experience and go back home as self-conscious human spirit. There had been a complete distortion of what life should be, and the innate selfishness which many have cultivated instead of the selflessness has brought many to this scenario which we find here on earth.
Thanks for that answer there, Gregory. As you say, it's quite obvious to see that is what is going on. Now, the next question is, what do we do now? So, if we are, looks like we are failing. So, yes, but let me say it another way. Can the situation be rectified?
Of course, the situation can be rectified, but at the same time, the personality must understand that the rectification should not take forever. That period of rectification, because there are other processes here on earth, there are also processes in the world of matter. The world of matter, which is temporal. The world of matter is not permanent, or parts of it are not permanent, in which you have the coming into being, the fructification, and then it comes to the process where it has to disintegrates into its primeval substances, that means the form that we know now will be crushed to its primeval substances so that it can start afresh again. So the human personality must fulfill that particular task within these cycles. It has not gone forever to fulfill this. So that fulfillment of the tasks, that is only possible within the time frame in accordance with the will of the Almighty that placed these laws into creation.
Thanks for that again, this answer, Gregory. So the next question is, can we human beings do this by ourselves, or do we need, let's say, extra help for that? Because I don't know if the majority are, it's, I know in democracy they say majority rules, but if you look at the majority in the human beings, you could say, sometimes you don't know whether it's the majority because the rulers in the world are a few, and you're wondering if it's these few are controlling the world and they're leading the rest of us with them wherever they're going, because obviously every person is an individual. So my question there, Gregory, is can we, how can I say, rectify the situation on our own, or do we need some outside help? And if so, what is that help?
The individual can make changes to its inner attitude. Each individual has the free will to make that change. So as many individuals that make that change here or hereafter, they improve themselves such that subsequently they can sever themselves and be on their way home. Such severance from the world of matter is in accordance with the will of the Almighty.
And
one may only influence what others do through one's example. So, although it's supposed to be one for all and all for one, the only thing the individual can do is to change himself for the better. And help is always woven into creation, even here on earth or in the world of matter, that as long as the individual intuitively requests for help, that help is granted the individual because it's an intrinsic right in its ability to make use of the streams of power which stream through creation. If, however, he or she is too indolent to walk along such a direction, then the fault is his own, not others.
thanks for that, Gregory. You mentioned there the will of the Almighty, and the Almighty, the word says it itself, Almighty. So it's from that you would say, whatever man does, the Almighty will always, how can I say, overcome or succeed. It's almost like independent of whether man is cooperating or not cooperating. So, but then, okay, maybe I'll say it a different way here, Gregory. Is man absolutely necessary to complete this task of connecting the whole creation Is it so? Yes, is man absolutely the yeah, the essential ingredient in connecting the whole creation?
The individual personality has the free will to act, has the free will to act because it's an intrinsic part of it. And using this free will is able to access the spiritual power which streams below its, or which streams from on high, and is able to make contact with this power. If it makes contact with this power and uses it in accordance with the will of the Almighty, which streams of power came in to enable him to develop. If it uses it that way, then it will mature in a step-by-step manner, and in that process of maturing, threads are spun. Those who are higher than itself will suck it through their activities as it matures to rise higher and higher. That is the structure of creation. If, however, it does not fulfill that which is his own task, then the possibility granted him to become self-conscious, that time and resources which have been passed on to it will be meaninless, because subsequently it will be trapped here in the world of matter. And when the world of matter relapses to its primeval substances, it, the human spirit, falls back into its unconsciousness and loses its form. So it is conditional that the human spirit, to become self-conscious, it must have fulfilled that which it needs to fulfill, and then is able to return home as a self-conscious human spirit and able to participate joyfully, filled with happiness. If it doesn't, it also returns home, but returning home after losing its form and going back to the initial state in which it was, that state of unconsciousness.
Thanks a lot, Gregory, for that answer. We've now come to the end of the show, listeners. So I'd like to, I hope you've enjoyed our discussion tonight. I'd like to now read something from the Grail Message, which is concerning this discussion that we have had tonight. So there's a lecture in the Grail Message titled Man in Creation. And I'm reading something, let's say, in the middle of this lecture, so it may not follow immediately, but hopefully you can get the understanding from it. So this is reading from the lecture, Man in Creation. He alone, as the only bridge between the luminous heights and the gross material earthly, should, and could provide the healthy, fresh connection. Only through him, in his special nature, could the pure life from the source of light pulsate downwards into the deepest gross material, and from there upwards again in the most glorious, harmonious, reciprocal action. He stands as a link between the two worlds, so that through him these are welded into one world. However, he did not fulfill this task. He separated these two worlds instead of keeping them firmly united. And that was the fall of man. Through the special nature just explained, man was really destined to become a kind of lord of the gross material world, because the gross material world depends on his mediation, in as much as, according to his nature, it was forced to suffer with him or could be uplifted through him, depending on whether the currents from the source of light and life could flow in purity through mankind or not. But man cut off the flow of this alternating current necessary for the ethereal world and for the gross material world. Now, just as a good blood circulation keeps the body fresh and healthy, so is it with the alternating current in creation. Cutting it off must bring confusion and illness, finally ending in catastrophes. This serious failure on the part of man could come about because he did not use the intellect, which originates only in gross matter, solely as an instrument, but completely subjected himself to it, making it ruler over all. He thus made himself the slave of this instrument and became merely intellectual man, who is in the habit of proudly calling himself a materialist. By subjecting himself entirely to the intellect, man chained himself to all that is gross material. Just as the intellect cannot grasp anything beyond the earthly conception of time and space, obviously the man who has completely subjected himself to it cannot do so either. His horizon, that is his ability to comprehend, became narrow, together with the limited ability of the intellect. The connection with the ethereal was thus severed. A wall was erected, which became dense and ever denser. Since the source of life, the primordial light, God, is far above time and space, and still stands far above the ethereal, naturally every contact must be cut off through the binding of the intellect. For this reason, it is quite impossible for the materialist to recognize God. I'm going to stop there, dear listeners. That was a reading from a section of the lecture in the Grail Message, which is Man in Creation. Giving a picture, you can say, of how man stands in creation. So if you wish to know more about the Grail Message or want to get a copy of the Grail Message for yourself, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that. www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners to say goodbye?
Wishing listeners a beautiful week ahead.
Thank you. Same from me, listeners. Have a beautiful week ahead. We'll be back as usual next Tuesday, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. UK time with another topic. Take care.